Hey guys. It's been a little while since we chatted. I think I probably look a little different. My hair has grown and I have lost about 25 pounds since that last video. Things are very different. I've been meaning to update you for a while, but there's a very specific reason that I took a few months to sort of process everything that's changed before I wanted to talk about it. And now I feel ready to do that, so I'm going to give you the update, okay? There's a lot to cover. So if you haven't watched any of my previous videos, you might want to do that. I've talked pretty in depth at this point about my avoidant personality disorder and my binge eating habits. And then around the time of my last video, I was diagnosed with ADHD, inattentive ADHD, which was, it felt sort of like out of left field for me because I didn't have really any understanding of what ADHD was. If you have seen my older videos, though, you'll know that I thought that I was autistic. Like, I was pretty sure that I was autistic for a while. But there were, like, a couple of key components to being on that spectrum that just didn't really make sense for me. And it turns out that my social barriers can be attributed to avoidant personality disorder, and all of my sort of like classic neurodivergencies can be attributed to inattentive ADHD. Sometimes I still call it ADD, that's what it used to be called. So that was a little bit of a shock for me because my understanding of ADHD really at that time was the stereotype of the hyperactive child, which I was not. And so I was a little bit skeptical. But then, I started treating the ADHD. I started taking Adderall. Talk to your doctor, that's not what this is about. But I started taking Adderall, and my life changed seemingly overnight. My perspective changed. It was a huge shift very quickly. But the reason that I waited, like I said, there was a very specific reason. If you've seen my older videos from North Dakota, which honestly I'm literally not even sure if I still have those as public or not, but if you've seen those, there is some documentation of the last few years of my life trying to sort of figure out my mental health. And there was a period where I was pretty sure, or I was at least trying to figure out if I had bipolar 2. Turns out I'm pretty sure it's hormonal and is either like a PMDD thing or just I'm depressed and my hormones do affect that a little bit. But if you have bipolar disorder and ADHD at the same time, it's very, very likely that if you try to start taking a stimulant drug to treat the ADHD, that is going to send you into a manic episode. And so I was very aware of that. And so when I felt so much better so quickly, I was afraid to lean into it too much and get ahead of myself because I knew that there was the potential for me to be stepping into like a manic episode, which for me, I'd never had like a true manic episode before. I was always trying to figure out if I had periods of hypomania or if I just had periods of being less depressed. And now I think what those like periods that I felt like could have been hypomania was actually hyperfixation from my ADHD. But anyway, so I felt better instantly, but I wanted to give it time to level out, to make sure it was going to be consistent, and thankfully for me, it has been. So the Adderall really did change my life pretty much overnight, and I want to tell you exactly how, because there are pros for me personally. There are a lot of pros. There are a couple of cons, I guess. And then there are a few things that it simply just didn't fix. Issues that I had before that I still have now that I'm still working on. So I want to talk about all of that because that's the update. So number one, we'll get this out of the way. Binge eating. Basically stopped overnight. That is largely because anybody who has been on Adderall or stimulants at all in their life will know that you lose a really big part of your appetite. If you're a binge eater, regardless of the size of your body or your weight or whatever, when you consume too much food on a regular basis, your stomach stretches out and can literally hold more food. And all of a sudden, I literally cannot fit more food in my stomach without feeling like I'm going to projectile vomit. The biggest change, though, wasn't just that like I lost my appetite so I couldn't eat. The craziest part for me is that I went from not being able to go a single like minute without thinking about food and wanting to self-soothe with food and like comfort myself with it at all times, to not even being able to entertain the idea of food, not even really having it cross my mind unless I'm legitimately hungry. And then when I eat, the moment that I am full, it's like, it's done. Like, it is done and I cannot take another bite. It doesn't matter what the food is. And I have lost 25 pounds in about like 3 months, which I feel like is a healthy amount. It has felt natural. I have not dieted at all. I'm still as picky as ever with food. I literally eat like a 13-year-old boy. But yeah, so I lost 25 pounds. I'm excited about it. I did want to lose the weight because the weight that I had gained, I did not gain healthfully. Like I'm still heavier than I feel like is like natural for my frame, but I am losing it. I'm losing it naturally and I'm not worried about it. And so that's been really great. That's been incredible, actually. Number two, let's say energy levels. That's like an obvious one. When you're depressed and you feel like you cannot get out of bed, but you are looking around and you're watching all of these other people just living their lives, getting up, doing an entire day's worth of stuff, and then like going to bed at 10 p.m. and you don't even have the energy to like get up and take a shower. It's really like when you spend years in that cycle, your mind really goes to like, I am like a piece of shit. Like I am a lazy piece of shit. If everybody else can just do this shit, what is wrong with me that I can't do it? And you guys, it's not just you. Like if you're laying in bed all day and you don't want to be there, then that's not you being lazy. Because literally the day that I started medicating my ADHD, there has not been a day since that I like really can't accomplish the things that I know I need to get done. And it's not even that I can do it. It's that like I don't even really like worry about it or think about it that much. Like if I have to do something, I just do it. There is none of that existential resistance, that heaviness in your limbs. Like I am just able to do it. I would say out of everything, like that alone has changed my life the most, because I was essentially unable to participate in life. Like I couldn't do it. I didn't have it in me. And I thought that was just, that I just sucked. And that's just who I was. And it doesn't have to be that way, I found. Another major thing for me is, and I almost don't know how to like differentiate these next few, so I'm just gonna kind of talk about it. My extreme sensitivity to criticism, or even perceived criticism, my self-esteem, my confidence, just inherently my sense of self, my perspective on me as a person, and everything, like the mental shift has been massive. I have spent my entire life basing my self-esteem directly on the validation of others. And I mean, a lot of people can relate to that, but those of us specifically with avoidant personality disorder, you know, we have very low self-esteem naturally. We hate ourselves, and so we think everybody else hates us too. And generally, the only way that we ever feel good about ourselves is when somebody else is like gassing us up real good, right? And for a lot of us, we never even get that opportunity, because we've formed these patterns to not even allow us to get close enough to somebody to risk that not happening. So there's never even an opportunity for it to happen, you know? And in like a lot of the like therapy work that I've also been doing in the last few months, I have realized that my overarching like cycles of depression, like the years of my life where I've been very depressed, and then the years of my life here and there that have been like really like much better, that have felt much better. Usually those parts are more like seasons. but in looking at those, I mean, it directly lines up with basically how much like reassurance and validation I've been receiving from other people, like historically. And all of a sudden, when you combine just, I don't know, just a change in mindset, probably directly from having the correct levels of dopamine in your brain, and then also having the energy to participate, and so you're being more productive, you're reaching more of your goals, you're feeling better. My self-esteem now, without really any change in any of my personal relationships, has not like skyrocketed. It's not like I think that I'm like anything special. I just like understand that I am also not like inherently less than anybody else. Like, it's crazy. I feel like it has given my mindset a chance to, I guess, kick out of like fight or flight mode constantly, and it's had a chance to mature. But I do also want to talk about the things that it didn't fix, and like two sort of negative side effects that I've had. Number one, I want to talk about avoidant personality disorder. I want to talk about rejection sensitivity dysphoria in ADHD, and whether or not, if I'm doing so much better now, am I still convinced that I have a avoidant personality disorder, or was it just the rejection sensitivity dysphoria from ADHD? I think I'm still an avoidant personality, and I will tell you why. Personality disorders are different because is it even, like, what even makes it a disorder? It's just a combination of developed, or on some level developed, on some level, natural, whatever, personality traits that are like somehow problematic, that cause issues for a person long term. And all of those patterns are still there within me. Like those are my personality traits at this point. Like it, and I don't think anything is really going to like change that. Obviously my self-esteem is better, and so I guess that makes me feel like I've gotten sort of a handle on it. But with that said, there are certain things that just cannot be solved without therapy, that a pill alone cannot solve. For me, although I have more confidence in like performing things in front of other people, even stuff that I already know how to do. Driving is a great example. So I have lived my entire life. I've known how to drive since I was 17, and I have never been okay driving with a passenger in the car. Like I've done it, like I've had to do it, and I've done it on certain occasions, but it is like panic. It's mortifying for me. I have spent my entire life just so terrified of forgetting how to drive when I have a passenger in the car that I would avoid it at all costs. Now it's like I still don't love it, like I would rather not, but I understand that like I know how to drive. And I don't have to doubt my ability to do that when I know that I know how to do it. Do you know what I mean? I still find it difficult to choose putting myself in socially risky situations over not doing so. And to be honest, if I didn't have a partner in my life that I was living with and sharing my life with that had friends and got me out of the house to do stuff with them, I honestly probably still would not be doing much of that. I am a full-time student right now, but I only have one class in person right now because of the state of the world, and it's a lecture, so I don't even have to talk. So it's not like I've really been pushing my boundaries. That's the thing. Socially, I still struggle. But I'm able to enjoy the social situation, I think, a little bit more once I'm there, but it doesn't really make it easier for me to want to put myself in those situations. Also, while I have not been dieting, and while I think that my weight loss has been at a healthy rate and largely natural, I still have, let's just be real, like, I'm not at all, I never want to glamorize any type of eating disorder, obviously, like, we are all suffering, but I think those of us that binge eat, we have this, like, understanding between us that we have lived our entire lives wishing that we had the other type of eating disorder that would make you skinny, at least. And so while I've been able to really like keep a hold of my my thought process here, okay, and I've done good, there are still thoughts of like, oh, like now I don't, like now I can restrict, you know what I mean? Like now it's easy for me, I can make excuses, I can do this. Like it would be very easy for me at this point, especially when I see myself losing weight. I can still feel that there is a force there that's like trying to suck me down that hole, okay? So I want to be like very honest. I have been able to manage it, and I feel like if I really wasn't eating, I think I would have lost more weight in the last few months. So I feel like I'm doing okay, but I'm still trying to make sure that I'm not weighing myself too often or getting caught up in that. I just wanted to be clear about that. I also just remembered, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you about the like negative side effects. So I'm gonna put that in real quick. Number one, I never used to be able to feel angry. I really did not feel angry. I only felt sad, guilt, hopelessness, ache in your chest, sadness. Now, maybe in part because of like the self-esteem difference too, and like I feel like I know my worth now, so I don't just feel guilty for every single thing that goes wrong. But I am able to feel angry now. I have to check my irritability a little bit. It's just what it is. For me, it's 100% worth the trade-off because I still don't think it's an unhealthy amount. I don't love it. Nobody likes being angry or feeling irritated, but it's minimal enough that for me it's worth it to be able to have the energy to get up and do things. I just also have the energy now to feel anger, and so that is what it is. And then the other thing that I've noticed, and this has been true for me almost every single time that my depression has truly been in remission, and that is that I lose some degree of my empathy. Now, I don't think this is a bad thing for me personally, because I think a lot of my depression a lot of my depression is based in being overly empathetic. And so for me to be healthy and functioning in my life, it just has to take that edge off, and it does. And it bothers me sometimes a little bit that I'm not as reactive to like emotional situations in like strangers as I used to be. I don't know, it's dulled it a little bit. I know some people will say that's it turned me into an emotionless monster, but when you're somebody who starts so emotional that you literally cannot function in society, I needed it. Like I needed this to happen to be able to be okay. And so, but I did want to point that out because I've noticed it, you know what I mean? Yeah, so the binge eating, the social stuff, and I would still consider myself to have avoidant personality disorder. I would just say I'm not struggling with it as bad now that the rejection sensitivity has been managed. Another thing I want to say about that, before I forget, I'm sorry this video is all over the place. What am I going to do? Doing my best. But one other thing I really wanted to say about that I think is interesting is that while I can look at my childhood and I can point out like traumatic situations that would explain the development of avoidant personality disorder, what I'm not sure of is if I had been treated for ADHD as a child and my rejection sensitivity dysphoria had been, neutralized at that point in my life, would those experiences that I had gone through manifested and developed itself into avoidant personality disorder as an adult? That I'm not sure. I'm not sure about. And that's what makes me feel like this is such an important factor to consider if you suffer from this disorder, because people process their traumas differently, right? So what happened in my past that led me to a literal personality disorder probably happens to kids all the time that grow up and end up just fine. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's always that subconscious feeling of like, well, my trauma wasn't traumatic enough. But we also understand that that it depends on the person and people process things differently. And as a child, as a very sensitive child, that had no idea that they were like that because of ADD, if that had been addressed back then, I might have been a little bit more, even as a child, a little bit more resilient, and it might have been different. And obviously we won't ever know. That's just a theory. But seeing how much it's helping me even now, even after all of these things have formed in me, it just makes me wonder if that was, a major component. Especially because, and this is, I think, my final thought of this video, especially because I have now realized since treating my ADHD, which, if you don't know, ADHD is attributed to low dopamine and is treated with stimulants that boost your dopamine. And so once I started treating the ADHD, treating the low dopamine, and my binge eating went away, my treatment-resistant depression went away, my binge eating went away, it really clicked for me how this whole time a major portion of my mental illness could be directly attributed to dopamine, which makes sense. I am not a scientist, I am not a doctor, so I had to come to this conclusion in sort of a roundabout way. But dopamine, if SSRIs especially are not working for you, then maybe it's not the serotonin. And it's like, oh, like I really had to fight for 28 years for it to just largely, at least, be dopamine in the end. And yeah, so that's where I'm at. That's the update. I'm doing much better. Things are not perfect. I'm still working on stuff, especially my avoidant personality disorder. That's like the main remaining issue for me now, and a major focus. And so, with that said, I know I've got some comments to look through of topics of videos you want me to make. But if you've got any more ideas, let me know, because I want to start filming a little bit again and talking about stuff. If you've got questions about binge eating, questions about ADHD, avoidant personality disorder, let me know. I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.